originally success would be 30 people, and then it turned into 300.
Hi, Brian here. Thank you for watching another episode. And today I'm so excited to be talking to Sarah. So, Sarah, tell us about yourself.
I'm probably going to find this to be the hardest question. I'm actually quite bad at talking about myself. I guess I've known from very early on that I've always been passionate about making a difference. Even when I was 8, I think, I was always drawn to things like volunteering, all of these, I guess, fundraising initiatives. So I started at a very early age. And I knew that as I grew up, I didn't want to lose that. I've always enjoyed it. I've always kind of been passionate about making that difference in other people's lives. So I think, that's who I am. That's a core foundation of who I am.
Growing up as well, I was very much into volunteering and I guess a bit of not like Bill Gates philanthropy, but I did give back to the community and society. I 100% agree that it's if everyone can put in a little bit more effort and just even a tiny bit effort to helping your fellow person, it's going to be it can definitely make a huge difference. So it sounded like it was a bit innate, but were there any other like inspirations, influences that you drew from with this passion?
I suppose my parents, they've always been really big on volunteering. They like to tell the story that when I was younger, 3 or 4, they would bring me to all of these volunteering events, community events. So I guess I grew up in an environment where that was important. That was a priority. And I was definitely influenced by it.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. And I think having solid role models is important. And part of the reason I invited you on is that I hope that your story and your journey can inspire some people out there to begin their journey as an entrepreneur as well. So what made you want to start a business? And maybe tell us a bit about your business that you started, or businesses, I should say.
Thank you. I actually have 2 businesses. So one is a tutoring business called SLM Prep. And the idea behind this business was that it would, I guess, redefine conventional tutoring. I worked as a private tutor before creating my business. And I realized that kids really did learn best when they weren't sitting at a desk and writing things over and over. We used Nerf guns and the alphabet and footballs, and they would do really well. They would respond really well. So I wanted to create a business where it was okay to not, be a traditional academic. It was okay to not want to sit down and write things over and over. And I'm actually in the process of implementing a new business model where for every one child that we tutor that's paid, we tutor another for free.
Wow, that's very noble of you. I think that's super important because growing up, my family wasn't well off. I think like we were a typical immigrant family where, we were okay. I mean, we didn't struggle to make a living, but we weren't also like, loaded with money. And I remember my parents having to save so much money on a weekly basis to provide additional tutoring for my sister and I. And I genuinely think that if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have learned discipline. I wouldn't have done so well in my school. And it's so amazing that you're making this more accessible to people by doing that one paid, one for free. And I guess this kind of marries the both of your passion and your business, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you've been volunteering. You've been, you've started your own business. Ha- Looking back, how has this journey been for you? And getting where to where you are now. What's the biggest learning that you've had?
Honestly, um, probably that using Excel is very important.
Ooh.
I didn't realize quite how many spreadsheets it would involve.
Hmm.
I've always been more on the creative side. I mean, I liked science, but I liked experiments more than data analysis. And so starting a business really made me sit down and organize myself and have to go through this completely new learning process
Hmm.
um, of how to set things up, because it wasn't just getting paid for a service. It was payroll and taxes and contracts.
Wow.
Um, so I think it was definitely a big change.
Your parents are very entrepreneurial as well, I've heard. Have they helped you along this journey, and did you learn a thing or two from them?
So I originally wanted to start both of my businesses all by myself.
Hmm.
I didn't want people to look at me and go, "Oh, she's successful because of her parents." So I told them to sit on the sidelines
Hmm.
um, for most of the process. And in hindsight, that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made. They were there, they were offering to help. And they were my parents. They had experience in this, years and years of it. And if I had taken their advice, I think I could have avoided quite a few mistakes.
Oh, trust me, I've been there as well. Because my dad's been a hustler and entrepreneur since he was like 13 back in China, and there are times where he'll tell me the right answers and the right way to do things, and I'll just be like, oh, I just out of my pride, or like I just didn't want to do it. And looking back, I'm in the same boat with you. Like, you know what? I should have listened to some of his advice. I would have had a lot fewer wall running into walls situations than I had.
Exactly.
But I also think like learning this, journey, going on this journey by yourself, learning this sometimes even the hard way is part of this journey of being an entrepreneur. Like I think, um, uh, but also on the flip side, having a mentor is super important. Do you have a mentor figure in your situation?
So now it is definitely my parents.
Okay.
um, I mean, again, when I started my first business, it was very much my business, like parents to the side.
Hmm.
I guess I learned from that entire experience. So when I started my second business, jollysanta.ca, I mean, look it up, whoever's watching this video. I think, you know, having them help me and give me advice, it helped a lot more.
I was a bit arrogant going through my journey, and I felt it was kind of like a chip on my shoulder as well. Like again, being second generation immigrants, and sort of like first generation in Canada, finally have my own roots. I kind of had this chip on my shoulder where I didn't want any help from anyone, and I wanted to do everything my way and by myself. And a big part of a very long part of my journey, I had no mentors, and I didn't even ask people for help. But more recently, I think like maybe the past 5 years or so, I've been more open, and definitely like now I recognize I need mentors and need people's help. It's been such a humbling experience to cross that bridge to the other side, for me, and I 100% think that everyone out there should have someone who may not be like an official mentor per se, but like someone who is a mentor figure in your quote unquote entrepreneurial life. And it's so great that you have people who will always have your back, as your mentors. There's a Chinese saying called, if translated directly, is as if you're adding wings to a tiger, meaning a powerful animal who's kind of like a land animal, right? Now suddenly gets a completely, a new ability to fly. Um, it makes that animal so much more powerful, and I feel like having a mentor at a young age to and growing your business from the beginning is kind of like that scenario where you're brilliant, you're bright, you're driven and ambitious, and now you have this additional ability of being able to lean on someone who has the experience to guide you. And I give you a huge kudos to being accepting of their help.
Thank you
It's
so
not
much.
it's not easy sometimes. Like especially for entrepreneurs, you're kind of like the counter, like the rebel, right? Or kind of like the type of people who, like, you see something that's quote unquote like not done to what you think is the best way, and you think I can do it better. And now being able to be open to receiving help and maybe accepting the fact that maybe you don't do the best in certain aspects. But all that aside, as a young entrepreneur, what do you think is an advantage of being younger, or maybe a disadvantage, or maybe both? Can you name a few scenarios or things that you find advantages or disadvantages?
For sure. So again, I think there's both advantages and disadvantages. One of the biggest advantages, I think, is that I have a completely different perspective. I mean, a lot of people who are older, who maybe went to school for business, things like that, their businesses are based on more traditional values. And I think that I'm really in touch with this new age, new generation. I mean, there are pockets of opportunity in fields that didn't even exist,
Right.
10 or 20 years ago. So I think that's one of my biggest advantages. I mean, just to name a few, there's, mental health, there's AI, VR, all this new technology. And I think that being able to look at these things as part of my daily life is amazing in terms of opportunity.
I totally agree. I think being quote unquote native to all of this technology is going to be such a huge advantage to you. But please go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's no problem. And for disadvantages, I guess at the beginning of my journey, I struggled a lot with credibility. So people would, assume that I knew less because of my age, or that my business wouldn't match up well with their needs because of my age. And some even assumed that because of my age, I wasn't running it quote unquote properly. But I think that as you continue on, your journey as an entrepreneur, at the beginning, yes, people might discredit you, but the more you build your resume, the more they look at you with credibility. So it turns into an advantage once you have enough experience, because people are like, wow, she's 18, but she's already started this. She has these skills. And she has, the new perspective of the younger generation. So I really think it's about working hard and proving to people that you are credible no matter how old you are.
Sarah, I've been working in the digital advertising agents industry for 13 years now, and to be quite honest, there's still people who doubt me. So I think credibility and what have you comes at every stage in your career, because there will always be people who think they know more than you, or there will always be people who actually do know more than you. Giving unsolicited advice right now is just keep trucking on. I think like if you believe in what you're doing and it's authentic to yourself, I think just keep doing it. Haters gonna hate anyways. It's the one and only Digo Double G. I think that brings us to a very important point. I think you keep doing what you're doing, or you prove to people that you are credible, and you continue to build the business in this with this particular vision you have in your head. But how would you define that? I've done it, or this is what success looks like. How would you define that?
I think it depends on where you are in your career and in your life. I mean, I started a lemonade stand when I was in grade 1, and success was maybe 3 people buying a cup of lemonade. And then there's me just recently launching a virtual Santa business. And I thought originally success would be 30 people. and then it turned into 300, and then it
Wow.
turned into corporations. So I really think it depends on where you are. And I also think it depends on how much work you put in. I've started initiatives where they're just side projects. I'm doing
Mhm.
school, I'm doing exams. This is just, for me, an experiment. And I've also started businesses where this is my heart and soul. Along with school and exams, I will work a full day. I will work 6 hours a day, maybe even 12 on the weekends to get this
Mhm.
going. And I'd obviously expect more success and development out of things I put more effort into.
So would you say like one of your measures of success like would be your input versus your output? So whether or not like there that ratio is there? That's what I'm hearing. So is that true?
That is true, yeah. I think there are definitely other factors, don't get me wrong. But I think that that is one of the best ways to tell.
Yeah, I remember. So I'll tell a bit of my story. This isn't actually the first YouTube project I started. So about gosh, 10 years ago now, I started a YouTube project that was kind of like a relationship advice channel. And this was like early days YouTube, so like 10 years ago, legit. And it was just a fun side project I did with a good buddy of mine. Shout outs to Brian Chen if you're watching this. Um, Chen and he graduated from was studying in the Ryerson telecommunications program, and it was a side project that we just both loved, and we poured so much effort in, and I actually even poured money in because I bought some equipment, I rented out equipment for the shoots, paid actors. We had people come up, play caricatures of themselves,
Mhm.
caricatures of themselves, and we had this like one jock player, and then we had like this liberal sex kitten type of character, and then we had this like conservative immigrants character, uh, but they're all playing a version of themselves that's kind of blown out of proportion. And I think we spent like months and months on this project, hundreds and thousands of dollars. And I was working like my entry level job, so basically every paycheck was kind of like poured into the project, and it never went anywhere. Um, but it was the most fun I've had, and I still have so many fond memories looking back. So, oh man, I'm gonna get roasted because I can't remember the people's. I know there's a Dave, there's Kat, and I can't remember the third guy. I'm so sorry. Um, but yeah, it was such a fun project. But my success back then was just like, you know what, let's try it. If it went somewhere, it went somewhere. The success was putting out the episodes,
Mhm.
and I would have loved for it to make money, but it didn't. But I learned so much, and I worked with some amazingly beautiful, and also like both inside and outside, amazingly beautiful people.
See, the way I would think of that would be, I mean, you input all this effort and the output you got was experience, memories. I mean, even now, after I don't know how long, you still remember all of these things with such fondness. And I'm sure you learned a lot from that experience. So that's how I would measure the output of it.
Awesome, that's a great way to put it. So your passions and your interests are aligned with what you do, and so what do you think would be, we talked about success, so what do you think would be the greatest impact on your success? Like what do you think you will need to put into play or have something aligned on on to be a key factor in your success in the future? So for example, like in a year or 5 years, what do you think you need to put into place to get to where you want to be? So maybe we can talk about like where do you want to be in a year, 5 years, and then we can talk about like, okay, what do you think will get you there?
I think in 1 year or 5 years, I want to run a business or an initiative or anything that still sticks to my core values. A lot of the things I've started are based on philanthropy or fundraising, and I don't want to give that up just to make money or to overlook, the original reason that I started these businesses, that I started getting into entrepreneurship. So I think that if I've done that and if I've kept my values in a year or 5 years, then I'll feel successful no matter where my businesses go.
Awesome. I really admire that. I think not enough I think not enough people out there have a solid enough vision and conviction to hold on to that vision to be quote unquote successful. Um, I remember back in school, like what I'm doing right now is still kind of like on that same journey that I started back in school, chatting with my good friend Raymond Tong. If you're watching this, shout out to you, my friend. We're still making Tree Bud a reality. It's just this long journey of trying to help entrepreneurs and startups way back, 14 years ago, 15 actually now. And I think if you're able to hold on to this belief and that vision, I think no matter what you do, I think definitely you will be successful. And I 100% agree
Thank you.
that holding on to your core values is super important. Sometimes people will say it's a disadvantage, but I never lie or I never say something that's untruthful. And that can definitely be used against me in business, but it's just something I don't want to do. And I'd rather give up opportunities because I'm not willing to bend the truth or, be insincere. Right? And that's just how I operate. So it takes a lot of conviction to do it in the face of like, oh, am I going to, be able to make a living because of this? But you know what? You're a good egg. I think you'll do fine.
Thank you very much.
It sounds to me like you have something cooking in the background. It's I see some gears moving about like, philanthropy and other projects that you have in mind. So what do you have anything that you're working on right now?
Well, I actually just finished a big project. Again, jollysanta.ca, check it out. It was a great time. I think I learned a lot from that project. We were featured on CTV, on CP24.
Mm-hmm.
And with that attention came, a lot of different problems that I had to learn to solve. And from there, I have a few initiatives planned, but they're going to stay secret for now.
Oh.
I guess shout out to everyone who wants to follow me on LinkedIn. I will be sure to update it on there once they get running.
Actually, let's unpack that a little bit. You mentioned some difficulties and some problems or issues that you've come across. What are some things that you learned through this process?
Critical thinking was a huge part of it. I guess I'll explain it a bit. I'll unpack it. So the business was to set up virtual Santa meetings for children through Zoom because they couldn't visit Santa at the mall like any other year. And 100% of whatever proceeds I made would go to Toy Mountain, the charity, so that children could have a fun Christmas. It was a holiday, spread holiday cheer, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I expected, honestly, maybe 30 clients. I really didn't expect many more. I had the resources for roughly 30 or 40 clients, maybe 50 at the very maximum. And then there were 300.
Wow.
And I didn't have the resources for it. And I didn't want to raise any startup costs or raise the startup costs I had already had because it was all going to charity. So it was a lot of, how can I use the resources I have? How can I spread the resources I have? How do I budget? A lot of finances definitely taught me a lot. but it was an amazing experience, and I wouldn't change it. It was a lot of work. It was during university exam season, but it was amazing, and I will never forget it.
Wow. Again, like, so happy to hear it about the turnout, and I followed a bit about that story, and of course, through your uncle, I hear bits and pieces as well. So it's pretty interesting. And thank you for that story. I think it's being able to roll with the punches, like good and bad, whatever curveball or different situation that you encounter is part of entrepreneurship. And I think you handled it amazingly well. And I think there'll definitely be a lot more curveballs up ahead. So learn as you go, I think, is probably the best advice I'd give.
For sure.
So I typically ask the same question to every guest. So and I'm going to change it up a bit. The normal question would be, what's one advice you'd share with the version of yourself that's just starting out? And I think that can still be valid to you. So maybe you can answer both of them if you're up for it. But the question I want, or the different spin I want to take on this is that, let's say 3 years from now, right? And then you'll be looking back at this video, right? What would you be telling yourself 3 years into the future instead of now looking back? But you can answer both questions or one. I don't know. Up to you.
I think for the me starting out, I would probably say it's okay to make mistakes. It won't be the be all or end all. You're going to make mistakes. It's a given. And learning from the mistakes, as cheesy as it sounds, is the most important part. Also, rely on your parents a bit more. They do know what they're saying. They do understand the advice that they're giving. And as to the me from the future, I would hope that that's actually a tough question. I would hope that, as I already said, I still have my values, and I'm actually not studying business in university. I'm studying science and mental health. So I would say that I hope that I don't give up entrepreneurship for other goals, because it is something that I'm passionate about. It is something that I absolutely love. So I guess I hope that I'm still, up for the challenge and the failures and all the hardships that come along with entrepreneurship.
Awesome. And it was so nice to chat with you today. And I've actually learned quite a lot from you. And it's a real amazing experience to talk with someone who has such clear vision. And it's gotten me more convinced that I need to stick closer to my vision and my goals as well, my values. You've been an amazing inspiration, and I think more people would benefit from hearing you speak, hearing you talk. So where can people find you?
So my LinkedIn is Sarah Lalji-Mawji. I know my last name is long. I'm sure it'll be on the title of the video somewhere.
I'll include the links in the description as well.
Okay, perfect. All my contact information is found there, my email, my number, and I'm always happy to connect and have conversations with, professionals and experts in their field. So if you have any ideas, business related, mental health related, feel free to message me. I will respond.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Sarah. And I hope maybe we can connect again and see if we can talk more about mental health and some of the topics that you're passionate about.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. It was an amazing experience.
Thank you again, and stay tuned for Sarah's next episode. Hi, Brian here. I really enjoyed my conversation with Sarah today, and it has taught me a lot about what success should be, and has inspired me to hold fast to what I believe in and my values, especially when it comes to running my business. Lastly, let me know if you liked or disliked the video. Please comment below with any feedback you have on how I can improve the content or if you have any questions. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're alerted the next time Sarah comes on to the show. So stay tuned.